Welcome. In this video, I will tell you a horror story. I hope you enjoy it. Horror story name: Cold Man. I had a strange dream last night. It was the kind of dream that seems all too real, right up until the point where you wake up in a cold sweat. Last night, when I was lying in bed, drifting off to sleep, an uneasy feeling came over me. It was almost as if I was being watched, but more than that, I felt like there was someone in the room with me. As disturbing as the feeling was, I still couldn't keep myself from falling asleep. I don't recall how the dream began exactly, but the first thing I remember was walking out of my house. All of my neighbors' houses were gone, and I found myself on a long empty road. It was cold and dark, and there was nobody else around. I felt like I was completely lost and alone, but I wasn't afraid. I don't know how long I was on that road. It felt like I was walking endlessly. Eventually, I reached a fork in the road, and when I stopped, I realized I wasn't alone anymore. A voice called out to me from the side of the road. The voice whispered said, "I'm sorry to see you here, but it's good to see you." I recognized the voice. It was an old friend from my childhood. Someone I hadn't seen in years. He looked a little different from how I remembered him. Even though we were both the same age, he seemed much younger than me somehow. He was also very pale, and had dark circles around his eyes. His lips were blue. I asked him, "What are you doing here?" He replied, "I'm here to warn you. There's a man in your house." I told him, "What do you mean? I was just there." My friend replied with apparent urgency, and he said, "You don't understand, he's in your house right now." I had no idea what he was talking about, but I was curious. I asked him, "Who?" He replied, "The Cold Man. He comes to people at night, when they're afraid. He waits to be noticed, then he makes his move. You know that chill you feel on your back when something really scares you? That's him, standing behind you." I asked him, "What does he do once you notice him?" My friend looked down and said, "Just don't let him in." I replied him, "What do you mean?" He said, "He can be close forever. He'll walk around your house at night, and even stand in your room while you're asleep, like he is in yours right now. He can know where you are. He can even be looking right at you, but he won't find you, unless you let him." I asked my friend a question. "How does he find you? I mean, how do you let him?" My friend glanced over his shoulder furtively, as if he was worried someone might overhear. Leaning in close, and he started whispered in my ear, "If you see him, if you hear him, or if you suddenly start to feel suddenly very cold, don't move. Don't talk to him. Don't acknowledge him. Don't ever let him in." After that, I pleaded him saying, "I don't understand. How do I get rid of him?" My friend replied sadly, saying, "You can't. Look, I'm already out of time." I'm not sure what he meant exactly. My friend just shook his head. His eyes were wide, and he was shivering. Just then, I noticed a dark figure creeping from the shadows. My friend said, "My time is up. Whatever you do, just don't let him in. Don't answer it." Before I could ask anything more, my friend was enveloped by the shadows, and something seemed to pull him into the darkness. I couldn't see him anymore. I was about to run after him, when I was awakened by a loud noise. When I opened my eyes, I found myself sitting upright in my bedroom, fully dressed. I could have sworn I wasn't dressed when I went to bed. My shoes were covered in a thin film of dust, and my feet were sore. I felt so cold. I heard a ringing noise, and when I looked down, I saw that I was holding my phone. I was about to answer it, when I remembered my friend's words in the dream. I didn't answer it. Eventually, it stopped ringing. I rubbed my hands together. The room was as cold as ice. The feeling that I was being watched was as strong as it has ever been. I could hear something moving inside my closet, but I didn't dare to move. I just closed my eyes and waited. Eventually, I heard footsteps inside my closet. They grew more and more faint, as if walking away down some unseen hallway. When the footsteps finally stopped, the cold dissipated, and the room returned to normal. He didn't get in this time. If my friend in the dream was telling the truth, if the thing in my closet was who I think it was, I must never let him in. I know he'll be back. I don't know what happened to my friend, but I just hope people will remember his warning. If you start to feel cold while reading this, don't be alarmed. If you hear something in your house, just ignore it. You can't afford to let him find you. Don't let the cold man in. Thank you for watching. I hope you liked this horror story. See you in a new horror stories.